How are you extending your hand to lift up somebody else today? Welcome to episode 9 of Becoming a Champion. And that question is very near and dear to my heart. I delivered my first TEDx speech just about 2 months ago. And I told the story of an incredible act of both courage and high EQ. And I'm proud to say it was from my own 10-year-old son. And the story goes something like this. We were playing in a basketball game. I was coaching my son's youth basketball team. He's just 10 years old. And we were locked in a thriller. And as the final seconds of that game began to tick down, we were leading by just 1 point, 12-11. As I like to joke, I thought we had the game in the bag. And as the seconds ticked down, I was pacing the sidelines 6, 5. With about 4 seconds left, the other team's best player blazed across the court, got an open look at the basket, and shot a buzzer beater. And as the shot went up, it just felt like time froze. It looked like it was going in. Now I can imagine what I looked like. A grown man, drenched in sweat, screaming, "No!" hoping that a 10-year-old boy would miss a jump shot. Not exactly my proudest moment. But as the final buzzer rang, the ball rattled in and out. Victory. I ran onto the court to congratulate my players on their hard-earned win. It turned out I missed the most important part of the game. It wasn't just about a win or a loss. As we were leaving the gym, the coach of the other team saw me walking out with my son, and he stopped me and he asked, "Is that your son?" And I nodded and said yes. And he said, "I don't know if you noticed, but when our team's player missed the final shot, he fell to the floor crying. Your son was the first one to come over, extend his hand, lift up the boy, and congratulate him on playing a great game." And I'll never forget what he said next. He looked at me and he said, "I want you to know you're raising him right." And I've thought about that moment a lot in the last couple of months. It became the backbone of my TEDx speech, which I will share the link for here, but also you're welcome to go check out on YouTube under my name, Christopher D. Connors TEDx. And I thought, raising him right. And the more we think about that, especially for those of us who are really analytical thinkers, we think, well, what does that mean? What does raising him right even mean? And I think we all have a concept of that in terms of the core values that we lead with, in terms of how we choose to parent, how we choose to lift up and help others, the thoughts that we have about how we want to raise a child or how we want to extend that hand, if you will, to colleagues, to people that we work with the words that we say, and of course, our actions. And so what I like to think about in terms of doing things right, raising someone right, treating someone right, I ask you to think about 2 better questions. How can I build myself mentally and emotionally to become the best version of myself? And how can my thoughts, words, and actions elevate others? And that to me is so much of what I realized is my own why. It's why I'm here doing this Becoming a Champion show. It leads back to the best of emotional intelligence. And really, self-awareness is threaded in those questions if we think about it. Building yourself mentally and emotionally to become the best version of yourself requires self-awareness. As we learned in the previous couple of episodes in our 3-part series on developing self-confidence, it comes back to having a basis of self-confidence and self-awareness to be able to build yourself mentally and emotionally to become your best. And seeking to elevate others comes back to empathy. It comes back to a desire to make the time to listen, to be curious, to put ourselves in someone else's shoes, to genuinely identify, to show that we care to someone else. And there's no better expression of showing someone that we care and that we genuinely have a desire to be there for them than to give them our time. It's the most precious resource that we have. So think about that where you are today, whether it's family, whether it's in business, giving someone your time. And it really is emotional intelligence that allows us to be self-aware and to help others. And when I saw my son do that earlier this year, and I found out what the coach had said to him after the game, I really, once I discovered that, it got me very emotional. Because insofar as we could define what raising someone right means, getting them to live an emotionally intelligent life, like shepherding our children, encouraging our coworkers, building a high-performing team with emotional intelligence, encouraging folks to develop confidence, to develop self-awareness, to become people that are truly stewards of those that live by the golden rule in an effort to elevate others to be their best. Because as I went on to share later in that TEDx talk, just about a year and a half earlier, my son had been playing in a competitive baseball league. He was trying to find acceptance and belonging. And while he did excel in certain ways, he was striking out, and I knew that he was struggling inside. And I remember we were driving home one night, and he's normally a little bit more reserved, but I could tell that he really was kind of looking to express himself, and he was fighting back tears in the back seat. And he finally turned to me and said, "Dad, when I'm up there all by myself batting in these games, sometimes I just get nervous when everybody is watching me and counting on me." And I think what my son was trying to express was that pressure that can sometimes come in life from others or that we put on ourselves. And when too much pressure comes, either internally or externally, it can lead to fear. And in certain instances, it leads to inaction. But fear, at least the bad kind of fear, the fear that we might actually succeed, the fear that is telling us inside, are we really good enough? That can really throw us off, and it can negatively affect our performance, and it can manifest itself into self-doubt. And the truth is that it had nothing to do in that instance of the skill of hitting a baseball. I knew that he knew how to do that. He had put in a lot of hard work and practice, and I'd seen him hit the ball well. It had everything to do with the self-doubt and the discouraging voice in his head telling him that, was he good enough to compete in this competitive baseball league? And the truth is, he was more than good enough. He was always good enough then. He's wonderful now, and he's all about really figuring that out. That's that mental and emotional skill development. And I told him, I said, you are more than good enough. And what I like to say is that we can always be more than for someone else, more than just a neighbor or a teammate, more than someone's boss or colleague, more than just a community member. We can be more than. We can be bigger and better and bolder to give someone our best self. And that was the lesson that he learned at a very young age that manifested itself in just a year and a half of time. It's a testament to the power of our mental and emotional development, how much we grow through adversity. It's the importance and the power of having a coach, having someone in your life that is there to encourage you and to push you. And we can do that as leaders for others. So I like to tell that quick story, both of those two stories for you, because in the end, so much of who we become in life and so much about who we discover about ourselves is on the other side of fear. And it's on the other side of overcoming adversity and powering through with a great self-awareness in who we are and that willingness to comfort and encourage others and to give them the gift of grace and confidence in their own moments of adversity. That's what being a great leader, and in the case of my son, who's only 10 years old, that's what being a great teammate and person is all about. We can all lead and live with emotional intelligence. That is the backbone of what becoming a champion is all about. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Becoming a Champion, and I ask you to think about in reflection how we started. How can you lift someone else up and make their life even better? When you live with that mindset, you're well on your way to becoming a champion. See you next time.